The alarm echoed through the Grand Council chamber, a sound that had not been heard in 3 generations. Ambassador Zixthar's translucent wings trembled as the emergency signal pulsed red across every display screen. Around the circular chamber, representatives from 200 species stirred in confusion and concern. High Mother Sela materialized on the central projection platform, her holographic form flickering with interference. The Valoran leader's silver skin looked pale even through the distortion. Her 4 eyes, usually bright with kindness, now carried only despair. "Honored Council," Sela's voice cracked. "This is our final transmission. The Krathic swarm has breached our last defensive line. Colony 7 falls as I speak. In 6 days, perhaps 7, they will reach our homeworld. We have evacuated all we can, but millions remain. We beg the Council for aid, for ships, for anything that might save even a fraction of our people." The hologram cut to images that made even the most hardened council members look away. Valoran cities burned under relentless bombardment. The Krathic vessels, massive and organic, descended upon population centers like locusts. Their ground forces consumed everything, leaving nothing but barren rock behind. Zixthar watched as the projection ended and Sela's desperate face returned. "Please," she whispered. "We have children." The chamber erupted in debate. Chancellor Morix, whose species had led the council for 5 centuries, raised his 6 arms for silence. "The Krathic have violated every treaty, every law we hold sacred. But what can we do? Our peacekeeping forces are scattered across 3 sectors. The Krathic fleet outnumbers us 10 to 1 in that region." "Then we send what we can," someone shouted. "Medical ships, refugee transports." "They will be destroyed before they reach Valoran space," another countered. Zixthar felt his stomach twist. He knew what was coming. He had argued against it in private sessions, but desperation made people irrational. Sure enough, Council Member Trayvon spoke the words he dreaded. "What about the humans?" Silence fell like a heavy blanket. Zixthar closed his eyes. The humans, the Deathworlders, the barely civilized barbarians who had been granted council membership only 5 years ago as an experiment in inclusivity. A decision he had voted against. Chancellor Morix clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. "The humans have ships in nearby sectors. They have offered assistance to council members before." "They are violent," Zixthar interjected, unable to contain himself. "Their entire culture glorifies warfare. Their planet, that nightmare world they call Earth, breeds aggression into every living thing. Do we really want to introduce that element into an already tragic situation?" "We are not asking them to fight," Morix replied calmly. "We need ships, Ambassador. Large ships that can evacuate populations quickly. The human vessels are built for their high-gravity world. They are sturdy and fast. Surely even humans can be trusted to carry refugees." The vote was called. Zixthar abstained, but it did not matter. The resolution passed overwhelmingly. The Council would request human assistance in evacuating Valoran civilians. Medical supplies, transport ships, and humanitarian support only. No military intervention. The message was transmitted through quantum channels, reaching Earth within hours. Zixthar spent that time reviewing files on humanity, trying to calm his fears. They were a young species, yes. Aggressive, certainly. Their homeworld had gravity 50% higher than galactic standard, an oxygen-rich atmosphere that would be toxic to many species, and weather patterns that ranged from deadly to catastrophic. They had evolved as pursuit predators, capable of running their prey to exhaustion over impossible distances. Their history was an endless cycle of warfare, but they had also shown moments of surprising compassion. They had helped the Torgai rebuild after a solar flare destroyed their communications grid. They had shared medical knowledge freely. Perhaps Zixthar was being unfair. Perhaps the humans would simply send aid and prove him wrong. 3 days later, the response arrived. Admiral Sarah Chen appeared on the council chamber screens. Her face weathered and hard, her dark eyes sharp. Behind her, Zixthar could see the bridge of a human warship, crew members moving with purpose. "Council," Chen said, her voice carrying an accent that the translators struggled with. "We received your request regarding the Valoran situation. We are responding with our 3rd Expeditionary Fleet. ETA to Valoran space is 96 hours. Chancellor Morix's relief was visible. "Admiral Chen, on behalf of the Council, we thank you for your swift response. How many transport vessels can you commit to the evacuation?" Chen's expression did not change. "We're bringing everything, Chancellor. The full 3rd Fleet. 347 warships, support vessels, and carrier groups. 20,000 Marines, full armament. The chamber fell silent. Zixthar felt his worst fears crystallizing. "Admiral," Morik said carefully, "we requested humanitarian assistance. Evacuation ships. Medical supplies." "You requested aid," Chen replied, her voice hard as steel. "We're bringing it, along with everything else we have." The Krethic have been expanding unchecked for 2 decades. They've wiped out 47 species that we know of. That ends now. "Admiral, the Council has not authorized military action," Morix protested. "We have protocols, procedures for handling such situations." Chen leaned forward slightly. "With respect, Chancellor, your protocols have let the Krethic murder billions. We read the archives, 47 extinct species. How many more before the Council decides to act?" "We got your distress call. We're responding. Third Fleet deploys in 6 hours. The transmission ended. The Council chamber erupted in chaos. Some representatives shouted in approval, others in horror. Zixthar sat frozen, staring at the empty screen where Chen's face had been. "They are sending warships," Morik said slowly, as if testing the words. "Their entire fleet." "They are Deathworlders," Zixthar replied quietly. "What did we expect?" "We ask predators for help and act surprised when they bare their teeth." Emergency sessions were called. Diplomatic messages flew back and forth between Earth and the Council. The humans were polite but firm. The fleet was deploying. Nothing would stop it. In her small chamber aboard the last Velarin evacuation ship, High Mother Sela watched the same transmissions. Her people were dying by the thousands with each passing hour. The Krethic were 3 days from her homeworld. The Council argued about protocols and procedures. And the humans, these strange Deathworlders from their violent planet, were coming, not with medical supplies, not with empty transport ships. They were coming with weapons and soldiers and war. Sela did not know whether to feel hope or terror. Perhaps both. She had asked for aid to save her people. Instead, something else was arriving. Something the galaxy had not seen in a very long time. As she watched the debates rage on the Council channels, a junior officer brought her a new report. Human ships had been detected entering Valoran space early. They had traveled faster than any Council vessel could manage, pushing their crews to physical limits that would kill most species. "How long until they reach us?" Sela asked. 12 hours, High Mother. They will arrive before the Krethic's next assault wave." Sela looked out at the stars. Somewhere among them, the human fleet was racing toward her dying world. She had asked for help. She wondered if she would regret what she had summoned. The humans were coming, and the galaxy was about to learn what happened when someone pushed a Deathworlder species too far. The Valorans had requested aid. The humans were bringing something else entirely. The Krethic siege commander, designated Hive Mind Segment 7, did not understand fear. Fear was an emotion, and the Krethic had evolved beyond such weaknesses millions of years ago. Yet when the sensors detected the incoming fleet, something close to concern rippled through the collective consciousness. 347 contacts. Moving fast, very fast. The Velaran defense platforms had been pathetic, destroyed in minutes. Their ships were fragile things, built by a fragile species. These new vessels were different. The energy signatures alone suggested power generation far beyond what the Krethic had encountered in this region of space. Segment 7 sent a simple message to the approaching fleet. "Depart. This harvest is claimed." The response came in clear Galactic Standard, but the voice carried an edge that no translator could fully capture. "Negative. You are in violation of Galactic Council law. Power down your weapons and prepare to withdraw, or we will remove you by force." Segment 7 transmitted the response back to the Greater Hive. The consensus was immediate and unanimous. Destroy them. Aboard the UESS Indomitable, Admiral Sarah Chen watched the tactical display with satisfaction. The Krethic had taken the bait. Their fleet was repositioning to engage her forces, pulling away from the Valoran colony world. Good. That gave the civilians more time to evacuate. "Admiral, we're receiving multiple hails from the Galactic Council," her communications officer reported. "They're demanding we hold position and await their negotiation team." "Tell them we're experiencing communications difficulties," Chen replied without looking away from the display. "How long until we're in weapons range?" 17 minutes at current speed. Chen allowed herself a tight smile. 17 minutes. The Council had spent 17 years debating what to do about the Krathik. 17 years while species died and worlds burned. Well, humanity had a different approach to bullies. All ships, this is Chen. Remember your training. The Krathik fight as a hive mind, which means they coordinate perfectly but adapt slowly. Hit them fast, hit them hard, and keep changing tactics. Make them react to us, not the other way around. And somebody please tell those Council observers in the rear that they might want to secure themselves. This is going to get rough. On the Council observation vessel Diplomatic Harmony, Ambassador Zixthar did exactly that. He secured himself in a crash couch designed for low-gravity species and immediately regretted volunteering for this assignment. Around him, other observers prepared themselves with various levels of comfort. "They are really going to fight," Council member Trayvon said, her gills fluttering nervously. "I thought perhaps it was a bluff, a show of force to encourage Krathik withdrawal." Zixthar checked his restraints a second time. "You do not know humans. They do not bluff. When they commit to violence, they commit fully. The Krathik opened fire first, as Chen had known they would. Massive plasma bolts and biomissiles streaked across space toward the human fleet. It was an overwhelming barrage, enough firepower to vaporize a small moon. The human ships did not slow down. They did not attempt evasive maneuvers. They accelerated directly into the bombardment. "Impossible," Zixthar whispered, watching his tactical display with mounting horror. "They are flying into the attack. Their crews will be killed by the acceleration alone." But they were not. The human vessels plunged through the Krathik barrage at speeds that would liquefy any other species. Their shields absorbed some hits, their armor took others. Ships were damaged, but none were destroyed, and all the while they kept accelerating. The Krathik had a moment, perhaps two, to process that something was very wrong. Then the human fleet opened fire. Chen had authorized what Earth Naval Command called unrestricted engagement protocols. In simpler terms, use everything. Railguns fired solid projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. Nuclear-tipped missiles bracketed the Krathik formations. Laser arrays carved through organic hulls with surgical precision, and the humans deployed something the Krathik had never encountered before: electronic warfare on a massive scale. The Krathik hive mind relied on constant communication between vessels. Human cyber warfare teams attacked those connections with sophisticated viruses and jamming protocols. Suddenly, Krathik ships that had operated in perfect coordination began colliding with each other, firing at ghost targets, executing commands from hours ago. "Jesus Christ," breathed Lieutenant Marcus Torres from his console on the Indomitable. "It's like watching ants when you kick their nest." "Stay focused," Chen ordered. "Second wave, launch assault shuttles. Target their command vessels. Third wave, move to intercept any ships attempting to break orbit." The Krathik, for the first time in their recorded history, attempted to retreat. It did not help. The human ships were faster, more maneuverable, and utterly relentless. Aboard the Diplomatic Harmony, the Council observers watched in stunned silence as the battle unfolded. It was not the elegant, honor-bound combat they had read about in historical records. There was no posturing, no pauses for communication. The humans attacked with a cold, calculated efficiency that was somehow more terrifying than blind rage would have been. "They are not even using their full fleet," Trayvon observed, her voice shaking. "Look at the formation. 2/3 of their vessels are holding position." Zixthar saw it too. The humans were fighting with one hand while keeping the other in reserve. They were testing the Krathik, learning their capabilities and simultaneously destroying them. It was the approach of a species that had spent millennia fighting itself and had developed warfare into a precise science. The first assault shuttles reached the Krathik command ships. Council sensors detected human soldiers boarding the vessels in armored suits. The Krathik interior atmosphere was highly acidic, hot enough to boil water, and filled with spores that were toxic to most oxygen-breathing species. The human Marines operated in those conditions for 4 hours. "Hi, Mother. The humans are boarding Krathik vessels," Sila's tactical officer reported, his voice filled with disbelief. "They are fighting inside the ships." Sila watched the data streams from her flagship's sensors. She could see biosigns moving through Krathik vessels, human biosigns. In environments that should kill them in minutes, they fought and advanced, deck by deck, compartment by compartment. "What manner of beings are they?" she whispered. Her science officer pulled up Earth's environmental data. "Hi, Mother. Their world is classified as a Class 12 death world. The gravity is 50% higher than our standard. Their atmosphere has high oxygen content and is borderline toxic to most species. Their planet has extreme weather patterns, active tectonics, and predators that hunt in packs. The humans evolved as endurance predators. They can run for hours, survive in conditions that would kill us, and their pain tolerance is exceptionally high. And we invited them here, Sela said softly. They are saving us, her officer replied. Look, on the display the Krethic siege was collapsing. Their formations were broken. Their command structure was in chaos and the human fleet pressed the advantage without mercy. Already 23 Krethic vessels had been destroyed. Another 40 were disabled and drifting. The battle that the Galactic Council had debated for years, the siege that had seemed unbreakable, was ending in less than 3 hours. Admiral Chen stood on her bridge, watching the tactical display with grim satisfaction. The Krethic were tough, she would give them that. But they had never faced humans before. They had never encountered a species that had spent its entire evolutionary history learning to kill more efficiently. Admiral, the Krethic flagship is attempting to retreat, her tactical officer reported. Should we pursue? Chen thought for exactly 2 seconds. Negative. Let them run. I want them to tell their hive what happened here. Let the word spread. Humanity does not tolerate genocide. She turned to her communications officer. Get me a channel to High Mother Sela. When the Valoran leader's face appeared on screen, Chen could see the mixture of gratitude and fear in her eyes. Good. Let them all be a little afraid. Fear prevented misunderstandings. High Mother, the immediate threat has been neutralized. We will maintain orbital position while your people complete evacuation procedures. Our medical teams are ready to assist with casualties, and we have supplies ready for transport. Thank you, Admiral, Sela replied quietly. You have saved us. We did what was necessary, Chen replied. Now we need to talk about what comes next. In the diplomatic harmony, Zixthar unfastened his restraints with trembling hands. The battle was over. The Krethic were fleeing. The humans had won. And that, he realized with growing dread, was only the beginning of the problem. The Grand Council chamber had never been so crowded. Every species with voting rights attended either in person or by hologram. The humans had been on Valoran Station for 6 days now, coordinating the evacuation of 3 million civilians and providing medical assistance. They had been polite, professional, and disturbingly efficient. They had also refused to leave. Chancellor Morix called the emergency session to order. Admiral Chen, the Council acknowledges the significant assistance your fleet provided to the Valoran people. However, your original mission has been completed. The Krethic have withdrawn from the system. We now expect your fleet to return to Earth space. Sarah Chen stood at the human delegation platform, her dress uniform crisp and decorated with more medals than most species awarded in a lifetime. Behind her stood 3 other officers, all watching the council with the patient intensity of hunting cats. With respect, Chancellor, our mission is not complete, Chen replied. The Krethic threat has not been eliminated, merely postponed. They will return, if not here, then somewhere else. They will continue their expansion, continue exterminating species. That is unacceptable. The Krethic situation is a complex diplomatic matter, Morix countered. It requires negotiation, careful consideration of all factors. Chen pulled up a holographic display. This is the Krethic expansion over the past 50 years. The image showed a growing red stain spreading across galactic maps. These yellow markers represent extinct species. I count 47 confirmed, another 12 presumed. The Council has spent 50 years negotiating with the Krethic. In that time, they have killed an estimated 72 billion sentient beings. The number hung in the air like a physical weight. Several Council members shifted uncomfortably. What are you proposing, Admiral? Asked Council Member Trayvon carefully. I am proposing we end the Krethic threat permanently, Chen stated flatly. My fleet is prepared to enter Krethic space and neutralize their military capacity. We will destroy their war production facilities, their fleet yards, and their command structures. We will ensure they can never threaten another species again. The chamber erupted. Voices shouted in dozens of languages, translators struggling to keep pace. Zixthar found himself on his feet without remembering standing. This is madness, he shouted. You are proposing an unprovoked invasion of a sovereign species' territory. This violates every principle of galactic law. Chen turned her sharp gaze on him. Ambassador Zixthar, isn't it? Tell me, how many species need to die before the Council considers action provoked? Is 47 not enough? Should we wait for 50? 100? We have protocols, Zixthar insisted, though his voice sounded weak even to himself. Diplomatic channels, economic sanctions, peacekeeping forces. Your protocols are worth nothing to the dead, Chen replied coldly. The Krethic do not respond to diplomacy. They respond to force. And that is what we will provide. High Mother Sela rose from her seat in the observer's gallery. Admiral Chen, I speak as someone whose species owes you a debt beyond measure. But what you propose frightens me. You are talking about total war. Chen's expression softened slightly when she looked at Sela. High Mother, I understand your fear. War is terrible, but I have studied the Krethic extensively over the past week. They have no concept of mercy, no capacity for change. They are a hive mind dedicated to expansion and consumption. They are a threat to all life in this galaxy. Sometimes the only way to save lives is to take them. The Council does not authorize this action, Chancellor Morix declared firmly. If your fleet enters Krethic space, it will be acting without Council approval. There will be consequences. Then there will be consequences, Chen replied without hesitation. My government has reviewed the situation. We have made our decision. The Third Fleet departs for Krethic space in 12 hours. Council members are welcome to join us, but we are going with or without your blessing. The session dissolved into chaos. Threats were made, alliances were questioned, and diplomatic relationships that had lasted centuries began to crack under the pressure. In her private quarters, Admiral Chen sat with her senior staff. Commander James Park, her tactical officer, reviewed their intelligence on Krethic space. Lieutenant Commander Maria Okonkwo, her intelligence chief, compiled target lists. Captain Robert Chen, no relation despite the shared name, coordinated with Earth Command. The politicians are going to tear themselves apart over this, Park observed. Half the Council wants to sanction us, the other half is secretly glad someone is finally doing something. Let them argue, Chen replied. That is what politicians do. We are soldiers. We solve problems. Some of our own people are questioning this, Admiral, Okonkwo said carefully. They are asking if we have the right to make this decision for the entire galaxy. Chen was quiet for a moment, staring at the star map on her display. When I was a child, my grandmother told me stories about her colony. It was on the edge of human space, small, barely 5,000 people. Pirates raided it when she was 12. They killed her parents, her brothers. The Galactic Council was asked for help. They debated for 6 months. By the time they sent peacekeepers, there was nothing left to keep peace over. My grandmother survived because she hid in a storage container for 3 days, listening to her neighbors die. She looked up at her officers. The Council is good at many things: science, culture, trade, diplomacy. But when violence comes, when someone needs to be stopped, they hesitate. They debate. They consider all perspectives. And people die while they talk. I will not let that happen again. Not when I have the power to stop it. The men and women of this fleet trust you, Admiral, Park said quietly. We will follow you into Krethic space. We will follow you into hell itself if you ask. But once we start this, there is no going back. The galaxy will see us differently. They already see us as barbarians, Chen replied. At least this way, we will be barbarians who protect the innocent. 12 hours later, the Third Fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace. In those 12 hours, something remarkable happened. 7 Council species officially condemned the human action, but 16 species quietly transmitted intelligence on Krethic positions, defenses, and fleet movements to the human vessels. Their governments denied it publicly, but their military officers understood what the politicians did not. Sometimes, someone needed to do the ugly work of keeping civilization safe. High Mother Sela stood on her flagship's observation deck, watching the human fleet prepare to depart. A junior officer approached hesitantly. High Mother, should we do something? Try to stop them? Sela was silent for a long time. No, she finally said. I called for help and help came. But what is arriving at the Krethic homeworlds is not help. It is judgment. And perhaps, just perhaps, that is what the galaxy needs. We have been soft for too long, believing that all conflicts can be resolved with words. The Krethic taught us otherwise. The humans understood that lesson long before they met us. Ambassador Zixthar watched from the diplomatic harmony, as the human fleet began jumping away, squadron by squadron. Each flash of entering hyperspace seemed to dim the stars themselves. He had filed 17 formal protests in the last 12 hours. All had been noted, recorded, and filed away. They are actually doing it, Trayvon said beside him. They are invading Krethic space. Yes, Zixthar replied quietly. And I believe we will regret asking them for help. Or perhaps we will regret not asking sooner, Trayvon countered. How many species would still exist if humans had been on the council 50 years ago? Zixthar had no answer to that. Aboard the Indomitable, Admiral Chen stood on her bridge as the last calculations were completed. Her crew worked with practiced efficiency, each person knowing their role perfectly. They were going to war. Real war. Not the polite skirmishes that passed for conflict in most of the galaxy. They were going to end a threat that had plagued civilized space for half a century. All ships report ready for jump. Admiral, her navigation officer announced. Chen looked at the stars one last time before they entered hyperspace. Somewhere out there, the Krethic were preparing their next expansion. They were building new ships, planning new invasions, selecting their next victims. They thought themselves invincible, the ultimate predators of the galaxy. They had never met humanity. All ships, Chen ordered, her voice carrying across every vessel in the fleet. Execute jump. It is time to teach the Krethic what happens when you threaten those under our protection. It is time to remind the galaxy that some threats cannot be negotiated with. They can only be stopped. The Third Fleet jumped into hyperspace, leaving the Valoran system behind. They carried with them the hopes of some species, the fears of others, and the weight of a decision that would reshape galactic politics forever. The Valorans had requested aid. The humans had responded with salvation. Now they were bringing something else to the Krethic homeworlds. Vengeance wrapped in the cold determination of Earth's finest soldiers. The hunt had begun. The Krethic Greater Hive had existed for 4 million years. In that time, it had consumed 17,000 worlds and absorbed the biological material of hundreds of species. It had faced resistance before, of course. Young species often fought back before they understood the futility of opposition, but they always failed eventually. The Hive was patient, relentless, and infinite. When the human fleet entered Krethic space, the Greater Hive assessed them with the collective intelligence of trillions of organisms. A single fleet, 347 vessels, impressive by the standards of the younger species but negligible compared to the Hive's true strength. The Hive controlled 6 star systems, 12 colony worlds, and operated over 4,000 warships. The humans would be consumed like all the others. The Hive was wrong. The Third Fleet's first target was a Krethic shipyard in the outer system of Kreth Prime. The facility was massive, a living structure that grew new warships the way a tree grows fruit. It was protected by 200 defenders and an array of biological weapons platforms. Admiral Chen's battle plan was simple and brutal. Target the shipyard's core structure. Nuclear bombardment, maximum yield. Destroy it completely. The Council observers, who had followed the fleet despite official disapproval, protested immediately. Admiral, that facility may contain civilian workers, drone species enslaved by the Krethic. There could be thousands of innocent lives. Chen's response was cold. The Krethic do not take prisoners. They do not enslave. They consume. Everything in that facility is part of the Hive. Weapons free. The bombardment lasted 6 minutes. When it ended, the shipyard was a cloud of burning debris and biological matter. The Third Fleet moved to the next target without pausing. Over the next 3 weeks, the pattern repeated across Krethic space. Human forces struck with precision and overwhelming firepower. They destroyed shipyards, fleet bases, and resource extraction facilities. They adapted to every Krethic countermeasure within hours. When the Krethic tried to overwhelm them with numbers, the humans deployed automated defense systems that could operate for days without crew intervention. When the Krethic attempted biological warfare, human soldiers fought in sealed armor that protected them from any contamination. The Hive began to understand something it had never experienced before: fear. On the Krethic homeworld, the Greater Hive Mind convened its highest consciousness nodes. The data was undeniable. The humans were not simply defeating Krethic forces. They were systematically dismantling the infrastructure that had taken millennia to build. Production was down 40%. Fleet strength had been reduced by 1/3, and the humans showed no signs of stopping. We must negotiate, one consciousness node suggested. Offer territory resources. We can rebuild what is lost. The humans have refused all communication attempts, another node responded. They do not want territory or resources. They want our extinction. For a hive mind that had existed for millions of years, the concept of total warfare was almost incomprehensible. Wars were fought for resources, territory, or survival. They had logical objectives. What the humans were doing had no logic. They were not claiming credit worlds. They were not harvesting resources. They were destroying everything and moving on. Aboard the Indomitable, Lieutenant Commander Okonkwo presented her latest intelligence to Admiral Chen. The Krethik are pulling back their forces, consolidating around their core worlds. They are preparing for a siege. Good, Chen replied. Let them concentrate their forces. It makes our job easier. Commander Park looked troubled. Admiral, we have lost 32 ships so far. Casualty rates are acceptable, but we are sustaining damage faster than our repair crews can handle, and we are deep in enemy territory. If they manage to cut our supply lines, they will not, Chen interrupted. The Krethik think defensively now. They are reacting to us, not planning their own offensives. That is when you know you have broken an enemy's will. When they stop thinking about how to defeat you and start thinking about how to survive you. In the Grand Council chamber, the political situation was approaching crisis. Half the council wanted to order the humans back immediately. The other half was quietly relieved that someone was finally addressing the Krethik threat. Ambassador Zixthar found himself in the unusual position of mediating between the two factions. The humans are winning, Council member Trayvon argued. In 3 weeks they have accomplished what we failed to do in 50 years. Perhaps we should support them officially. They are committing genocide, another member countered. We cannot condone the complete destruction of a species, even the Krethik. The Krethik have genocided 47 species, Trayvon shot back. Where was this moral concern then? Zixthar listened to the arguments with growing frustration. The council was good at debating philosophy, but the humans were busy making the debate irrelevant. By the time the council decided on a position, the war would be over. High Mother Sela received daily updates on the human campaign. Her people were safe now, rebuilding their colony worlds under the protection of a small human garrison, but the reports from Krethik space troubled her deeply. They are not just fighting a war, her military advisor reported. They are erasing the Krethik from existence. Every facility, every ship, every structure, nothing is left intact. Can the Krethik recover from this? Sela asked. Unknown, High Mother, but even if they survive, it will take them centuries to rebuild. The humans have set them back to pre-spaceflight levels. Sela felt torn. The Krethik had nearly exterminated her people. She should feel satisfaction at their defeat. Instead, she felt uneasy. The humans fought with such efficiency, such cold determination. What happened when they ran out of enemies? The Battle of Kreth Prime was the turning point. The Krethik had concentrated their remaining fleet above their homeworld. Nearly 2,000 warships organized in defensive formations that had never been breached. The greater hive mind was confident. The humans would break themselves against this defense. Admiral Chen studied the tactical display for 6 hours before issuing her orders. She had learned much about the Krethik in 3 weeks of warfare. She knew how they thought, how they fought, how they communicated, and she knew their weakness. They are a hive mind, she explained to her staff. Perfect coordination but limited adaptability. They make a plan and execute it flawlessly, but if you disrupt their communications, even for a moment, they lose cohesion. The attack began with a massive cyber warfare assault. Human electronic warfare vessels positioned at the edge of the system broadcast a signal that exploited a vulnerability in Krethik biocommunication. For 17 seconds, the greater hive mind lost contact with its fleet. 17 seconds was enough. The third fleet struck during that brief window of confusion. They did not try to break the Krethik formation. Instead, they bypassed it entirely, using a gravity slingshot maneuver around the homeworld's moon to come at the planet from an unexpected angle. By the time the Hive regained control of its fleet, human forces were already in low orbit. The bombardment of Kreth Prime lasted 4 hours. Chen targeted only military and industrial facilities, but the damage was catastrophic. The planet's fleet yards, its command centers, its biofactories, all were reduced to rubble. The Krethik fleet, desperately trying to respond, found itself caught between defending the homeworld and engaging the human vessels. They could not do both effectively. When the battle ended, the Krethic had lost over 1,000 ships. The humans had lost 93, and the Krethic's ability to wage war was broken. The greater hive mind, for the first time in its existence, attempted to surrender. It broadcast a message in Galactic Standard, offering to withdraw from all disputed territories, to cease all expansion, to accept any terms the humans demanded. Admiral Chen received the message on her bridge. Her officers waited for her response. The war could end now. The objective had been achieved. The Krethic were no longer a threat. Chen thought about her grandmother, hiding in a storage container while her family died. She thought about the Valorans, nearly exterminated before anyone acted. She thought about 47 extinct species whose names were barely remembered. Rejected, she said quietly. Continue bombardment. Target the next hive cluster. Commander Park looked at her with concern. Admiral, they are surrendering. If we continue, it becomes extermination. Chen met his gaze steadily. How many species offered to surrender to the Krethic? How many civilizations begged for mercy? The Krethic showed none. They consumed entire worlds. If we stop now, in 10 years, 20 years, they will rebuild and start again. The only way to ensure they never threaten another species is to remove their capacity for warfare permanently. There is a difference between defeating an enemy and destroying them, Park said carefully. Yes, Chen agreed. And the Krethic taught us which one actually works. They do not understand mercy. They understand only strength and survival. We will make them so weak that survival is all they can manage. The bombardment continued for another week. When the Third Fleet finally withdrew from Krethic space, they left behind a civilization in ruins. The Krethic still existed, but they had been reduced to their homeworld, their fleet destroyed, their colonies abandoned. It would take them centuries to recover if they ever could. The Grand Council chamber had never been so quiet. Every seat was filled, every species represented, every eye focused on the lone human standing in the center of the floor. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at attention in her dress uniform, her face expressionless, while Chancellor Morix read the charges against her. Unauthorized military action, violation of sovereign space, destruction of civilian infrastructure, war crimes. Morix's voice echoed in the chamber. Admiral Chen, the Galactic Council finds these charges supported by substantial evidence. How do you respond? Chen's voice was steady. I accept responsibility for all actions taken by the Third Fleet under my command. I do not, however, accept that those actions were wrong. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Morix called for order. Admiral, you destroyed an entire civilization's military capacity. You killed billions. I stopped a genocidal force that had killed trillions, Chen countered. The Council had 50 years to act. How many more species needed to die before you found the political will to intervene? Ambassador Zixthar rose from his seat. Admiral Chen, no one disputes that the Krethic were a threat. But your methods were barbaric. There are rules, laws that govern warfare even between hostile species. Chen turned to face him directly. Ambassador, with respect, those rules are written by species that have forgotten what real war looks like. Your laws assume rational actors, diplomatic solutions, proportional responses. The Krethic were none of those things. They were an existential threat. You do not negotiate with extinction. You stop it. And who made you judge and executioner? Another council member demanded. The Valorans did, Chen replied. When they sent that distress call, they were not asking for a debate. They were asking for someone to save them. We answered. And if the same situation happens again, we will answer again. High Mother Sela stood in the observer gallery. She had not been planning to speak, but the moment demanded it. Council, I must say something. My people were dying. The Krethic were days from exterminating us completely. The Council debated. The Council discussed. The humans acted. They saved 3 million of my people. Yes, their methods were violent. Yes, they exceeded any authorization, but they succeeded where diplomatic channels had failed for half a century. That does not justify their actions, Morix replied, though his voice had lost some of its certainty. Perhaps not, Sela agreed, but it explains them. The humans are warriors. Their world made them that way. When you asked them for help, you were asking warriors to solve a problem. You should not be surprised when they used warrior methods. Chen pulled up a holographic display. Council, I want to show you something. This is data from the past 3 weeks gathered by our intelligence services and confirmed by multiple independent sources. The display showed star maps, immigration patterns, economic indicators. Since the Krethik defeat, 17 species have stopped their own aggressive expansion programs. 6 border disputes have been resolved through negotiation instead of force. The Velter hegemony, which was planning an invasion of the Torsian belt, has pulled back its fleet. The galaxy is more stable now than it has been in decades. Because they fear us, Zixthar said quietly. You have made the entire galaxy afraid of humanity. Good, Chen replied without hesitation. Fear prevents conflict. Every potential aggressor now knows that if they start exterminating species, humanity will respond. We have become the deterrent that the Council could never be. Council member Trayvon spoke up. Admiral, what you are describing is military hegemony. You are proposing that Earth become the galaxy's enforcer. I am proposing that someone needs to be willing to do what is necessary to protect the innocent, Chen corrected. If the Council wants to take that role, I welcome it. But the Council has proven, repeatedly, that it prefers discussion to action. Someone must fill that void. And if we order you to stand down, to return to Earth space and never interfere in galactic affairs again? Morix asked. Chen smiled, but there was no humor in it. Then you will be making a choice, Chancellor. You will be choosing to let the next Krethik, the next genocidal force, operate unopposed. Because make no mistake, there will be another one. There always is. Evil does not stop because you ignore it. It stops when someone stands against it. The debate raged for 6 hours. Council members argued about sovereignty, about military power, about the nature of civilization itself. But underneath all the arguments, everyone in that chamber understood the truth. The galaxy had changed. Humanity had proven itself willing and able to project military force in ways that no Council species could match. The question was not whether humanity would be a power in galactic affairs. The question was how to manage that power. Finally, Chancellor Morix called for a vote. The Council must decide. Do we condemn human actions and demand Earth's withdrawal from galactic affairs? Or do we acknowledge the effectiveness of their intervention and work to integrate their military capacity into Council operations? The vote was split almost evenly. 43 species voted to condemn humanity. 40 species voted to work with them. The remaining species abstained, unwilling to commit to either position. Morix looked exhausted. The Council is divided. We cannot reach consensus. However, I propose a compromise. We will establish a new framework. A rapid response force that can act when time-sensitive situations arise. This force will be commanded jointly by Council military advisors and human officers. It will have authorization to respond to existential threats without waiting for full Council debate. It was a political solution, a way to save face while acknowledging reality. The humans would get what they wanted. Operational freedom to respond to threats. The Council would get what they wanted, some measure of oversight and control. This force will be called the Galactic Defense Initiative, Morix continued. Its mandate will be to prevent genocide and protect member species from existential threats. Admiral Chen, will Earth participate in this initiative? Chen considered for a moment. It was not everything she wanted, but it was a start. Earth will participate, Chancellor. But I have conditions. First, the GDI must have the authority to act immediately when threats emerge. No debates, no delays. Second, member species must contribute forces and resources. This cannot be humanity doing all the work while the Council criticizes from safety. Third, any species that commits genocide or attempts to exterminate another civilization will be subject to immediate military intervention. Those conditions are acceptable, Morix agreed quickly, before other Council members could object. We will draft the formal charter immediately. As the session ended, Zixthar approached Chen. Admiral, I owe you an apology. I called you a barbarian, a warmonger. I was wrong. Chen shook her head. You are not wrong, Ambassador. I am those things. My species is violent, aggressive, and dangerous. But we are also protective, loyal, and we do not abandon those who need help. The galaxy will have to accept all of those things about us. I am beginning to understand that, Zixthar replied. But answer me honestly. Was this worth it? The lives lost, the destruction, the fear you have created? Chen looked out the observation window at the stars. Ask me that question in 10 years, Ambassador. Ask the species that survive because the next threat was stopped before it could exterminate them. Ask the children who grow up because humanity drew a line and said no further. Then we will know if it was worth it. 2 months later, High Mother Sela stood on the rebuilt capital city of her homeworld. Around her, Velaran children played in the streets, their laughter carrying on the wind. Above, human patrol ships maintained orbit, a permanent garrison to ensure the Krethic never returned. A human marine, Sergeant Lisa Washington, stood guard nearby. Sela approached her. "Sergeant, may I ask you something?" "Of course, High Mother," Washington replied respectfully. "Your people saved us. You fought and died for a species you barely knew." "Why?" Washington was quiet for a moment. "My commander has a saying, ma'am. She says that evil triumphs when good people do nothing. Humans have spent our entire history watching people suffer while others looked away. We decided as a species that we would not be those people. When someone calls for help, we answer. It is that simple, but at such cost," Sela said softly. "Your people lost thousands." "Yes, ma'am, and we will honor them. But they died protecting 3 million Valerans. They died stopping a force that had killed billions. Every one of them volunteered for this mission knowing the risks. They believed it was worth it." Sela looked up at the human ships in orbit. "What happens now? Will your people stay?" "For as long as you need us, ma'am." "That is the promise Admiral Chen made. Humanity does not abandon its friends." Across the galaxy, the impact of humanity's intervention continued to ripple outward. The Galactic Defense Initiative began operations with forces from 23 species, commanded by Admiral Chen from her new flagship. Border conflicts that might have turned violent were resolved peacefully, with both sides aware that the GDI was watching. Aggressive species reconsidered their expansion plans. Refugee crises were addressed with unprecedented speed. The galaxy was not perfect. There was still conflict, still suffering, still injustice. But there was also something new, hope. Hope that when evil rose, someone would stand against it.